Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's the motivator here. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. How you all feeling, people? How you feeling? I'm feeling fantastic. It's been a wonderful few days. Truly an empowering experience. Wow. And this is going to be one of those inspirational moments for you all. Watch this space and stay with us in approximately 40 minutes or 45 minutes time. We're going to have one of those groundbreaking interviews, just like our last podcast and the podcast before that. Groundbreaking interviews that set the scene for the future, because in unity is strength. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Hope you're feeling good. Hope you're feeling vigorous. Hope you're feeling truly alive. Now, what I want to do on this particular podcast is rattle through some really important points it's important to make. It is true that the Motivators Show addresses those issues of fundamental concern, particularly to people of African heritage. Let me make it clear. Make it clear to you all. Okay. But the reason for that is because we are a people who are on the ascendancy. So it is necessary to focus on those issues that are impeding, interrupting that progress. Okay. So the last two podcasts addressed the issue of Sudan, the Sudans. The situation there in some areas is dire. I want to recognize that the situation in Sudan, in the Sudans, in some places is dire. So I want to thank my two groups of guests from South Sudan and North Sudan, who's been sharing with us their humanity, who they are as people. And that was and has been a tremendous, that just ordinary people who simply want peace so they can spread prosperity for themselves, their families, and their wider communities. That's all they want. They do not want to get involved in any international controversy. They are happy to accept people of different religious affiliations, happy to accept people who have different ethnic or tribal affiliations. They're happy to accept people of different social class. All they desire is peace and prosperity for all. And there are clearly groups of people who are attempting to prevent that from happening, which is why we've got to give praise and respect to the president of Burkina Faso. Yeah, in the face of intense opposition from outside the country, I might add. Captain, indeed, President Ibrahim Traoré is a trailblazer for other African nations and indeed Caribbean nations to do the same. Because without taking control of the land and controlling what happens with that land, the resources that come out of that land, and maximizing for the benefit of the people, the land, you don't have a country. I say again, you do not have a country. So it's important, it's truly important, that the people of the land assert their ascendancy to that land. So I want to give praise to Captain Traoré Ibrahim. Yeah, recognize him for his outstanding works. I want to give praise and respect to the Burkinabe people. Yeah, recognizing their courage in the face of intense international opposition. Now, I used the term quite correctly, apparently, international opposition. But that opposition will lose. Let me make it clear. That opposition will lose. Well done, people of Burkina Faso. Equally, I want to recognize the people of Ethiopia. Quiet, solid, determined. Quiet, solid, determined. Yep. I want to recognize the people of Rwanda. Absolute solid progress. I want to give an uplift to the paramount chief of the Herero people in Namibia, and indeed the new leader of Namibia, president of Namibia, and recognize their courage for demanding just reparations for the genocide, the first genocide of the 20th century, yeah, that was committed by the Germans against the Herero people of Namibia. I want to recognize them, yeah, and not be afraid, he says, to recognize them in the face of international opposition. So we are possibly an outlier channel. So you can expect some, well, interference from time to time. It's just the nature of these matters. It is simply the nature. And of course, with a regressive regime in the United States of America, we can all but expect this type of behavior. Mhm. But remember, success is yours for the taking. I'm going to say it again. Success is yours for the taking. Be proud, be proud, be proud. But this particular podcast will be truly an inspirational experience for all peoples of the world. Yep. Let it begin. Let it begin. Let it begin. So the first order of the day, as you know, we've all got to be concerned about our personal health. Mm-hmm. Health is indeed truly our highest wealth. Okay? Let's be clear, without good health, we have nothing. I will say it again, let's be clear, without good health, we have nothing. So let's move forward, shall we? Let's move forward and discuss for a few minutes our health. Okay. I know for some people it's a little touchy and never quite understood why, but I understand that is the case. That is simply the way it is. Simply the way it is. But be not afraid, because together we will help you. Because in unity is strength. In unity is strength. So I just want to spend a few minutes just discuss our health. Just a few minutes. Some of you be aware that right across the world, particularly here in the West, here in Britain, the Caribbean, parts of Africa, and most certainly the Americas, there is a health epidemic. Particularly people of different social class, yep, there is clearly a health epidemic. And most certainly among people of African heritage, they just want to recognize that, but it's true of Asian heritage as well. It is also true of all ethnicities. But I want to focus specifically on this occasion, and you would allow me, for people of African heritage here in the West. I am based here in Britain and here in London. And what we see are health emergencies. Above average, way above average levels of diabetes, way above average levels of hypertension or high blood pressure, way above levels of fatness or obesity, way above average levels of mental health concerns, yeah? And of course, way above levels of cancers. But many of these conditions are avoidable if we're conscious of our health and we take note of our lifestyle. Lifestyle has a profound impact on our general health and well-being. And I want to bring it to your attention. I feel it is a public health emergency. This is a public health emergency. And what I'm not seeing is sufficient response to what is clear and present danger, this public health emergency. So I want to bring it to your attention. Because not to do so, because I'm a father. Yes, I'm a father. Yes. And I have been responsible for not only my own children, but other children, way beyond myself. Okay. And be concerned about their academic performance, their emotional development, and of course, their health profiles. And be in a position where those who are the practitioners, the experts, are given the resources that can provide advice and guidance to those who need it most. So here on this very public of platforms, I am obligated to continue that mission of extending to you, those who are being weighed down by these conditions, that we can together make the difference. Because in unity is strength. In unity is strength. Working together towards common aim and common purpose is the only way forward. Yes, you can do it alone. And you want to go fast and quickly lose your weight, you can do it alone. That's fine, that's fine. But if you do it together, you'll find the progress, the achievements is sustainable. Because you're holding the hands, you're in the embrace of your fellow man and woman, yeah, your neighbors, working together in common aim and common purpose. And I'm assuring you, it's many times easier if you work together with your neighbors, with your families, your neighbors, yeah, your networks, with common aim and common purpose, and be determined that you understand this is both self-interest and, of course, the wider interest. I say that deliberately. Self-interest, in other words, you're taking care of yourself, but it's also of the interest of the wider interest. Because what you're doing is pouring your resources, yeah? You're pouring your energies. And where you have doubts, you've got others to pick you up, to hold you up. So you're forward with a clear intention. Because we all need support. We all need that, little get up, come on, you get up, you can run further, you can run further. Yes, you can do this. Got up and down. Yeah? You can think about how much fat you're consuming, how much sugar you're consuming. You've got someone to reference whenever you feel those moments of weakness. Because in unity is strength. And what I want to play is a short video which exemplifies these conditions. But I want you to take note of what the professor says, yeah, about these matters. A person who's dedicated his life to helping people, to promoting their health and well-being. Just listen to what he says. There is no financial gain for him. Yeah, there's no financial gain. All the gain is you. You are the gain. Even if you're feeling down, listen keenly to what the professor has to say. But the condition here in London is reflective of what it's like in many cities, many towns, many villages across the world. So I want you to take note. There we go. I want you to take note and listen keenly, because I know you choose a healthy lifestyle. The Motivator Show, the internet's most inspirational podcast. Every Saturday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. I choose a healthy lifestyle. I will relax and when possible attend a spa. I will eat healthy food and drink appropriate amount of water each day. I will exercise and maintain fitness. I will not be afraid of doctors and seek out medical examination when I need it. I will promote good mental health because it's important to me. I deserve to be happy. London is United Kingdom capital city. It is amongst the most cosmopolitan in the world. It possesses all possible extremes, including in wealth, cultural and religious diversities. The main causes of illness and premature death in London, like the rest of the United Kingdom, are coronary heart disease, strokes, cancers and respiratory diseases. Other key health challenges in London include tuberculosis, issues relating to sexual health, including HIV/AIDS, mental health, and drug and alcohol misuse. It is likely that these issues and diabetes and obesity will continue to be priorities over the next 10 years. As London's diverse population increases, there's also likely to be an increase in diseases which are more prevalent in some black and ethnic minority communities, such as high blood pressure and renal diseases. I choose a healthy lifestyle. I will relax and when possible, attend a spa. I will eat healthy food and drink appropriate amount of water each day. I will exercise and maintain fitness. I will not be afraid of doctors and seek out medical examination when I need it. I will promote good mental health because it's important to me. I deserve to be happy. London currently has high levels of health inequalities with unacceptable variations in infant mortality and life expectancy across the capital. Tackling these issues is likely to remain a key challenge over the next 10 years. London is United Kingdom's capital city. It is amongst the most cosmopolitan in the world. It possesses all possible extremes, including in wealth, cultural and religious diversities. The causes of health inequalities are similar to those that determine health in general, including, for example, housing conditions, employment opportunities, environmental factors such as pollution, the amount of exercise undertaken, one's diet and smoking, and access to health services. I choose a healthy lifestyle. I will relax and when possible attend a spa. I will eat healthy food and drink appropriate amount of water each day. I will exercise and maintain fitness. I will not be afraid of doctors and seek out medical examination when I need it. I will promote good mental health because it's important to me. I deserve to be happy. Public health priorities. Life expectancy is stalling and health inequalities are widening. After a century of increases, the decades prior to COVID-19 pandemic saw improvement in life expectancy amongst the UK population stall. For some, these improvements went into reverse. Between 2010 and 2012 and 2016 and 2018, life expectancy among women living in the most deprived 10% of areas of England fell, with the largest increases in the northeast. The diseases now most prevalent within the communities include diabetes, high blood pressure, heart conditions, cardiovascular diseases, lung diseases, cancers, and obesity. London is United Kingdom's capital city. It is amongst the most cosmopolitan in the world. It possesses all possible extremes, including in wealth, cultural and religious diversities. Professor Kevin Fenton, CBE. Kevin Fenton is the president of the Faculty of Public Health. He's also a senior public health expert and infectious disease epidemiologist who has worked in a variety of public health executive leadership roles across government and academia in the United Kingdom and internationally. His specialist interests are in tackling health inequalities, infectious disease prevention and control, climate justice, and urban health. Professor Fenton is the Regional Director for London in the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities within the Department of Health and Social Care. Within this role, he's also the Statutory Public Health Advisor to the Mayor of London and the Greater London Authority and the Regional Director of Public Health for NHS London. He is also the Government Chief Advisor on HIV and Chair of the HIV Action Plan Implementation Steering Group for England. Professor Kevin Fenton says, I'm a public health director. Here are 5 things you can do to improve your health. 1. Mindful and balanced eating. Nourish wisely. Eat whole, balanced meals with awareness to support energy and well-being. Get outside, be with nature. Time outside reduces stress, improves mood, and strengthens your connection to the world. 3. Stay curious, stay engaged, explore new interests, keep your mind sharp, build social contacts, and boost your happiness. 4. Get active, move it or lose it. Move daily, lift weight, and do cardio. Exercise, improve physical, mental, mood, and energy. 5. Prioritize rest and sleep. Disconnect, rest. Quality sleep supports mental clarity, emotional balance, and overall health. I choose a healthy lifestyle. I will relax, and when possible, attend a spa. I will eat healthy food and drink appropriate amount of water each day. I will exercise and maintain fitness. I will not be afraid of doctors and seek out medical examination when I need it. There you go. You're not afraid, are you, to go seek out help from doctors, yeah? And you will pursue a healthy lifestyle. That's the affirmation we want to get from you. That's the affirmation, is the response to that short video. Let's work together to promote good health and well-being. And what I'm heartened by is the numbers of the audience, both here in London and beyond, who recognise that working together is the only way forward if we want to promote good health and well-being. And working together means putting your resources, acquiring the assets so you can work together to promote good health and well-being. You exercise together, you run together, you lift weights together, you swim together. Yep, you have leisure time together. And in doing so, you're promoting good health and well-being. And what I'm heartened by is the numbers of people from the audience and beyond who've responded to those common sense messages. So I want to give you an example of a group of people here in London who have responded to the call, promote good health and well-being, make it easy for people to come along and exercise and be together, make it easy for people to talk about their health and general well-being, make it easy for people to think about their mental health and indeed their spiritual health, make it easy for people to come together in common aim and common purpose, in peace and love. Yeah, in peace and love. It doesn't require you to be of a particular ethnicity. You just got to have a common aim and common purpose. Therefore, it doesn't matter. We are all human beings. And together, we can make the difference. Does that make sense? Together, we can make the difference. I want to show you some evidence of a group of people who have come together in common aim and common purpose and are clear that they want to make the difference. Absolutely. I want to show it to you. Look at them, watch these people. These are just ordinary people. Some are quite big, but they're exercising, they're sweating, but they're doing it together. There is no shame, there's no shade, there's an understanding. It's common aim and common purpose. We're all here for the same outcome. Good physical and mental health. Watch this group of people who've come together. Hey, they're fantastic. Here we go.
Famous.
Oh, yes.
Hello, 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 hello.
Oh, yes.
You get one life only. Myself get one life only.
Just ordinary people.
Use I'm gladdy and enjoy.
Come together.
Time. I love another
common
finish. Time me know the waits
and
nobody.
common purpose.
Why the guy for always get time nice every day.
All their resources.
This one way we all fend we safe.
So I can't access to this hall.
You want to eat with you much we go down you belly nine.
Got a train up front. There you are. Watch it. Well done. Well done. Yeah? Look at that. There's some are big, some are small, but they're all dedicated. No shade, no shade.
you see finals where you call it Bilam.
Is this happening in your community?
You meet top woman.
If not, why not? Make it happen. Enjoy with your neighbours. Let's promote good health and well-being.
The food where you feel for it's not for eat.
Look at that, huh? They're sweating. Oh, and I see children there as well. Oh God, look at that.
Love them, but if you love them all now, you not for left them. Want them cause nobody know. Nobody know it's in too manga old. So every day of my life till old, I fasting enjoyment.
There's no shade. There's no shade here. No one's being judged.
All man they fed for himself.
They're trying their best. Do it regularly. It'll make a difference. Regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your religious affiliation, regardless of your social class, you can make the difference. You know, children there, inculcate these habits at an early stage of their lives, they take it into adulthood. Oh yeah.
As long as you get
this is what we want to see. This is what we want to see. We need more of this happening in your neighbourhood. And it's not. Set one up yourself. Ask your neighbours. Let's exercise together. It's easier if we do it together. In unity is strength. Oh yes. You've got to love them, haven't you? You've got to love them. It's translated words into action. There's no idle talk here. This is pure action. I'll try it myself. Oh yeah, it wouldn't work out, right? Yes, I most certainly sweat.
So every day of my life till old, I fasting enjoyment still go. Now for land for care for yourself.
We need more of this. It's not happening in your neighbourhood. You need to create it. Speak to your loved ones. Speak to your family members. Yep. Speak to your friends. Speak to your neighbours. Someone up if you don't have it. But it's easy to access. It should be free to access through your resources. Hire the hall. Get the equipment. There you go. You might not even need equipment at first. Just do it. It's that commitment that matters. Commitment to yourself, to your loved ones, to those who look up to you. You make the difference. In unity is strength. In unity is strength. Yeah. Yes, wonderful, 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 wonderful. Okay, well, those are the lifestyle messages. I hope they receive you well, okay? And if in doubt, ask questions, okay? I'm not the expert, but these are just common sense advice. You heard from the professor. Yeah? His words, I think you can take as being authoritative advice to you. I'm providing that general advice. Get out. Exercise. Don't become a couch potato. Sit in your bum for extended period of time. Yeah. It is important to you. It is important to us all that you take care of yourself because you're part of a wider community, a human family. Yeah. We have that one race. Don't believe any of this right-wing cobwallop. We are but one race, the human race. There's only one race. We are a single species. So we're all the same. Our needs are physical, yep. Our mental and spiritual needs are all the same. We are but one people. Praise Jah, Rastafari, bless, assure. Now let's move forward. Let's move forward. So now we want to communicate a few other messages to you before we get to the crucial subject of today. And before I get to that crucial subject, I just want to say this about working together. And I say again, in unity is strength. Okay. Why this is important? Because if ordinary people do not find means to find unity, common ground, then you're subject to a small group of people manipulating you for their ends. Not your end, but their ends. So regardless of your ethnicity, you've got to see your neighbors as simply another human being. They don't have to have the same amount of melanin in the skin, or the same shape eyes, or the same height, or the same style of hair. We are but all members of the human family. And I want you to keep that in mind as this podcast progresses, okay? Because we are defying those who wish to sow discourse, division amongst the populace. That's what we seek to do here, to defy those who do not value our differences and use it as a lever to sow discontent and division. That's what we're defying here, okay? And what we will come on to when we come on to the treaty discussions among Pan-Africans and diaspora in particular, you will see the importance of that unity. But before then, a few other quick announcements I want to make, which is going to be important for us and you going forward henceforth, okay? Because there are a number of important discussions we've had over the past few months, which are incredibly important, okay? There's one I want to start off with, which is, of course, quite very specific here in Britain and the British Commonwealth, former Commonwealth, okay? I want to give a call out those who've been affected by what is termed as being the Windrush scandal. I want to get note to it. There are still far too many people, thousands, tens of thousands of people who have been illegally, I assert, I'm not an expert, but I say illegally disenfranchised, their nationality taken from them. Here in Britain, 1948 Act gave all members of the Commonwealth the equal citizenship here in Britain. And if you were born particularly between 1948 up to 1972, without a shadow of a doubt, you have a right to British citizenship. Or indeed, if you are a child of someone with that status, you have a right to British citizenship. But what happens through racist behavior, I say again, ethnic bias amongst some British legislature, which unfortunately included both parties, okay, unfortunately, was they systematically took away those people's legal rights, to which we now have the so-called Windrush scandal. Further details we'll cover in a future podcast, hopefully in sometime next month. But those affected by the Windrush scandal who are living here in Britain or indeed in the Caribbean or Africa particularly, I want to wish you to encourage you to reach out and seek the advice that you amply deserve. On the screen, you now see here, if you're based in Britain, the Windrush Legal Advice Clinic, which are based at 58 Bank Street, here in the West Midlands in England. Postcode WV148PD. Email address at info@Windrush Legal Advice Clinic. You can see it .com. There it is on the screen. Telephone number, if you're in the UK, it's 01902 382 542. I wish to thank all the legal beagles who were here only a few months ago from the Windrush Legal Advice Clinic and applaud their work. I wish to applaud their work. Well done, and keep up the good works. As much as whatever support we can provide to you, we will provide that support to you. Okay. And of course, what I should also point out, of course, many of you recall Anthony Brown, who's called for a Windrush Act. Okay, very important step forward. If we can secure a Windrush Act, in other words, we enshrine in law, through Parliament, in other words, in law, and correct the mistakes, I'm going to call it, of the past. Okay, we can enshrine in law the rights of those who are entitled, absolutely entitled, to British citizenship and all that brings with that. Okay. Let's support Anthony Brown. In fact, we need to get him back into the studio, and we need to talk about it. Okay, let's talk that further discussion with him. But you wish to reach out to him and join the campaign to secure the Windrush Act. You can contact him via www.wdlegal.co.uk, and his contact details, etc., are all there. I commend that campaign to you, an important step forward for Britain and the Commonwealth. I also want to give another shout out to a good friend and respected colleague, the Mayor of Southwark. Okay, she was here a few podcasts ago, talk about a subject of high sensitivity, and that is FGM, female genital mutilation. But I'm assuring you, okay, I'm not a woman, but I'm assuring you, if you in any way mutilate, cut any part of our genital areas, it is unlikely to be beneficial and serve no physical benefit to the woman. In fact, I've encountered in my social life far too many women who've been mutilated, cut in this manner, and live with the pain, the embarrassment, degradation every day of their lives. It is a source of great pain and hardship. I cannot understand how the men in those communities could allow the women to suffer so. Whether you do it to them as babies, mutilate parts of them as babies, or you do it to them when they're grown women, it is simply, well, questionable, to say the least. It is questionable. And I've said many times, I'd love to speak particularly to the men, and let's have that discussion. What do they perceive to be the benefits of cutting a woman, cutting a girl in this manner? What do they really perceive to be the benefit? And if there are benefits, please, let's put it on the table. Let's look at these benefits, okay? Let's look at these benefits. Nevertheless, all the indications are that the benefits are few and the detriments are many, okay? Let me put this on the screen. Let's compliment the Mayor of Southwark, the founder of Unshackled Duma. Okay, that's what she's called, the organization that's campaigned against FGM. Her email address is unshackledduma2. I'll spell it for you. UNSHACKLEDUMAR followed by digit 2 at gmail.com. And let's reiterate, Unshackled Duma is a Southwark-based organization that empowers women and girls, particularly from Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities and Muslim communities here in Britain. The organization focuses on promoting self-empowerment, autonomy, and advocacy, with a strong emphasis on combating female genital mutilation or cut. It raised awareness about FGM's harmful effect, supports survivors, and works towards eradicating the practice. It is important. It is important. It is important. We need to respond to that call. An outstanding human being. And thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your works. Thank you. Oh, as I say, I bet far too many women who've confided in me and they would not confide in others and shared their testimony directly. No, I wasn't simply moved. I was, well, ashamed to be a man, to have a wife who might have gone through the experience, and knowing that my wife, the woman I'm with, could be suffering in that manner because of an act carried out by people who have not really considered the long-term implications. Okay, all right. And my last quick announcement, if I may, I know that was rather heavy. Well, maybe it's not an announcement, it's really a statement. Because it's a statement which will resonate with the interview that I will conduct shortly. Okay. And I just want to put this one there. Remember Samora Michel. And this is what he said. And this is quite important because he really addresses the issue of mindset. And just listen to what he says about his country and indeed Africa as a whole and beyond. Of all the things we've done, the most important, the one that history will record as the principal contribution of our generation, is that we understand how to turn an armed struggle into a revolution. That we realize that it was essential to create a new mentality to build a new society. A new mentality to build a new society. Yeah. And I say this to you all because this is regardless of your mentality, forgive me, of your ethnicity. Those words apply to you. If you want a just world in which there is no hunger, there is no poverty, it requires ordinary people, regardless of your ethnicity, to come together in common aim and common purpose. Yeah. I can see no reason why any human being should die for lack of food, should die because they don't have enough water. Yeah. Should not have the best possible medical care, best possible education. I can see no reason why we are not able as human beings to ensure all human beings have this as a bare minimum, absolute minimum. I can see no reason. It's simply a choice that we make, collective choice that we make, that it is otherwise. It's not the elite, the super rich. It's not them. I'm showing you. It's ordinary men and women, yeah, have to make that choice to respect other human beings as our equals, regardless of their ethnicity. It doesn't matter. We're all human beings. The outward diversity is simply regional adaptation, nothing else. My melanin is simply a regional adaptation. Okay. If I were in the Scandinavia, I have less melanin because it's simply a regional adaptation. But you're all from Africa, ultimately. Yeah, that's it. It's just a regional adaptation. Our genetic diversity is what's ensured that our species, the human race, has survived for millennia of thousands of years. So we've got to raise our expectations of ourselves, our families, and our wider communities. And in doing so, we transform the world. But it is a choice that ordinary men and women make. You can't hide behind the ideas that the rich and the elite are determining your worldview. You choose to accept their worldview. You've got to have that moral courage to do otherwise. I recognize it takes moral courage. I recognize that is so. But the choice is yours. These podcasts are designed to help you to make those choices. Okay? In peace and love, he says. Hey, in peace and love. Respect for all, he says. That's it. That's it. Yeah. Just because you've got a little bit of money, yeah, and you can actually feed yourself and your family, and that is not enough. An alien visiting our planet would see us for what we are, a single species. Yep, that's what we are, a single species, a single race. They will not be able to determine those differences, because those differences are really surface differences. The fundamental core is that we're all the same. Because we are but one species. And if those ideas can inculcate in your head, in your way of thinking about the peoples of the world, you have taken the first step to transform the world. Mm-hmm. In my own borough, we talk about where I live, we talk about a people-powered borough. In other words, politicians and others facilitate, provide all the support so the people drive progress in the borough. They have a sense of ownership because they've been supported to drive progress in the borough. That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. Are your municipal authorities, are your government enabling you to make personal and family and community progress? If not, you should question them. That's why I say to you, question them. Question them. And together we'll make the difference. In unity is strength. Translate these words into action. Yes, keep reciting those words, yeah? And I'm assuring you, it would affect your mindset and empower you to make the difference for yourself, your family, and your wider network and communities. There you go. That's the way forward. Now then, I'm going to get my interview underway, and I believe I'm going to ask my guest to join us. What I'm going to do is just play a bit of the intro video, just help my guest to get into the studio, and we get this interview underway. It will be an important occasion. Okay? This will be an important occasion. So I'm going to play a little bit of the intro video, to bear with me just for a moment or two, just to help my guest to come into the studio. There we go. Okay, I think we're now ready. And as is usual, these things, this is live, so the final edited version will, of course, have considerable substance to it, additional features. But let me bring my guest into the studio. We'll get ready for what will be a truly an inspirational experience. There we go. Let's bring my guest into the studio, and I'm going to bring him right now. Let's see if it works first time. It'd be nice, wouldn't it? There we go. Oh, let's bring him in. There you go. There we go. Aha. Okay, let me try this one more time. There we go. And here he comes. And here we are. He's now in all his grace. Good morning. Good morning, sir. How are you? How are you?
Greetings. Good morning. Good morning. Greetings.
Good. Now, this is African time. Usually African times are way ahead of time, but it's all right. Too right. It is good. Remember, we're the first originators of time, literacy and science and philosophy. Let's be clear about that. So we've got a standard to maintain. So I'm going to go right into this interview because we've got little time and there's a lot to get through. And there's much for the audience to learn. Okay, and we want to do it in bite-sized chunks so that the ordinary audience I have here can absorb and learn. Okay, but I know you're a teacher, and the world, he says, to be run by teachers. I'm unashamedly say that. I was a school governor for 27 years, so I'm going to say so. Absolutely, we need to learn from our leaders, and you are a leader, sir. I'm going to invite you, please, just say your name and the organization that you represent. Please, go ahead. Go ahead. Morning.
So, my name is Sipiwe Baleka. I am the founder and president of the Balanta Barasa History and Genealogy Society in America.
Right.
I work with a lot of other organizations as well.
Yes. Wow. Now, that's quite a title there, if I may say so. Okay. I'm going to come to the organization in a moment, but I'm interested in your name. Could you have if you don't mind me saying so, with my very British accent and American accent, okay? But you have a truly African name. Can I ask you your African name, its meaning? Because that's usually the tradition. What does that mean?
Yes. So, Sipiwe Ka Baleka is the name that was given to me by a council of elders, Zulu and Hosa elders in Azania, which we call South Africa. Sipiwe means gift of the creator, and Baleka means he who escaped, but it also can mean fast. For example, I was a world-class swimmer, so yeah, so it kind of fits.
Okay. Yes, I read something of your profile. You were you in the American team or did you quite? Something happened if I recall. Yeah.
No, I had aspirations to become the first black swimmer on the U.S. Olympic swimming team.
Wow. Yes.
1992, I missed Olympic trials by 0.8 of a second. So,
okay.
Yeah, it was a great career, but no, I didn't make it.
But don't you worry. It has therefore put you on an alternate course, which has led you to this moment, this time.
Absolutely.
And I know the creator has a design, and you most certainly haven't read your profile. It is truly impressive, and maybe another time we could go through your profile. But I'm also interested in the fact that you've used the term here, Balanta Barasa History and Genealogy Society in America. Just for my understanding, and I had to look this up, folks. I had to look this up. Okay, the Balanta. What does that mean? Is it a place? Is it a thing, or is it a people? Just unclear. Go ahead.
So, Balanta refers to a people who currently their homeland is in the Republic of Guinea-Bissau.
Okay.
The Balanta people have been here since maybe the 10th century, but they had actually originated in the Nile Valley and had migrated through, centuries from the Nile Valley to Guinea-Bissau, which is West Africa. It's just below Senegal and Gambia.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your connection with the Balanta people?
So my great grandfather
Okay. All right.
lived in the village of Nunche
Uh-huh.
here in Guinea-Bissau, and he was captured as a boy, about 8 years old. He was captured and trafficked as a prisoner of war across the Atlantic, where he was enslaved in Charleston, South Carolina. And
Wow. Okay. Wow. And you've been able to trace your lineage back to the people, to these people. Wow. Isn't that
yes,
fantastic?
it,
How's it changed your life in doing so? Because I can see the pleasure, the happiness, the wholesomeness that you are exuding here today. How's it
you
changed your
know,
life? Hmm.
DNA testing is a miracle.
Yeah.
And so what it does is it enabled me and all the Afro descendants
Hmm.
in the West
Hmm.
to um, cure themselves of
Yes.
ethnocide,
Indeed.
right? Those of us whose ancestors were enslaved in the Americas,
Mm.
we lost our ethnic and ancestral identities
Indeed.
for
Yes.
6, 7, 8 or more generations. So by this DNA testing miracle, to be able to recover that, to finally, after all these, hundreds of years and generations, answer the question, I know who I come from and where I come from in Africa. Um, how do you articulate regaining that?
That's right.
It's profound.
It is
Um,
profound. Yes.
and
Yes.
it's part of a journey, a healing journey, a process that isn't always easy or rose colored,
No.
but that sense of knowing and belonging and
Absolutely.
restoring that connection to your ancestors. The
Yes.
ancestors, they're real, they're with us,
Yes.
they
Yes.
exist in the universe,
Yes. Yes.
and we literally are them. We have their blood, their breath, their DNA. So to restore that connection, um, anyone that values family, to be reconnected to thousands of generations and
Yes.
ancestors,
Yes.
is where
I
we
I
plan.
hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I've been on a similar journey myself that I mentioned previously, and been able to undergo exactly the same process. It is profound,
Mhm.
absolutely profound, and I wish to encourage. And we've had the leaders of AfricanAncestry.com here in these studios. Okay, I wish to encourage those of you, those of us of the African diaspora of many generations, to seek out your true roots. 'Cause once you
Mhm.
do so, your confidence, and I say and assert my general health and well-being, has been magnified 1,000
Yeah.
times, many, many times. Oh yeah, there's no way I would ever go back to that old person that I was. And I just need to complete the final stages you've gone through to finally regain my true name. Hmm.
Yeah. Well, you
I look
asked me
forward.
how it affected me. It affected me so much that I left the United States 4 years
Yeah,
ago, and
yeah.
I now live in Guinea-Bissau, right?
Oh,
And
well done.
so
Yes,
it's
well done.
possible to
Yes,
regain your land, your
yes,
culture, your
yes,
identity,
yes,
all those things that were taken from us. It's possible now to regain that.
yes. Thank you. Say no more for the moment, because this is a topic we could go through on another occasion, most certainly. But it is profound, and it sets the tone for this interview. Okay, because the Balanta Brosa History and Genealogy Society in America is an organization that is recognized, of course, by the AU. Yep, Organization African Unity. Okay, um, it is an important organization for all Africans. Okay, but generally we don't understand what is it, what does it do, and so on.
Mhm.
And whilst I'm not going to make you accountable for what it does and so on, okay, it is well. But it'd be useful just to help the audience, could you set the context for this conversation? The African Union, can you just maybe summarize its goals and give us an overview of its governance structure, just to help the audience for some contextualization for my future questions? Go ahead, sir.
You're talking about to describe the African Union.
Yes.
Yeah. So the African Union is an intergovernmental association of the 54 or 55 independent nations that exist on the African continent. It was born out of the Pan-African struggle to unite all people who share a common heritage and a common destiny based solely on the fact of being African and having black skin.
Indeed.
And so out of that Pan-African movement emerged a liberation struggle. And on the continent, the first 33 independent African states formed the Organization of African Unity in 1963. Its goal was to liberate the remaining dependent colonial territories. So we're talking about, the people that lived in what we know today as Zimbabwe or South Africa or Namibia. Those people at this time in 1963 were still under foreign alien domination by Europeans. And so the newly independent African nations said, our first task is to liberate those territories. That was completed when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, and the apartheid system in South Africa was defeated. And at that time, the Organization of African Unity had sort of fulfilled its goal. And so the leaders in Africa, the heads of state of these independent nations started to ask the question, now what? What's next? And they realized that moving towards some kind of united African states or a united state of Africa, Kwame Nkrumah's dream.
Absolutely.
Now that the territories were liberated, we needed a new kind of organization for the next phase. And so the late 1990s, 1999, they started having meetings to transform the Organization of African Unity to the African Union. And that happened in 2001, 2002, 2003. And so here we are now, 2025, so 22 years. African Union has what they call an Agenda 2063, which would transition the African Union as an intergovernmental association into an actual continental government with one currency, one military, no borders.
Praise Jah, Rastafari.
Yes.
Absolutely. So yes. Keep going.
Well, so right now they're in this transition phase. Now, there are people who feel like 2063 is not quick enough. We are in 2025. We can't wait that long. So there are, debates and different factions and groups of Pan-Africanists everywhere who have different opinions on, do we move forward with the African Union with its slow pace? Do we need to create an alternative that can be faster? But the fact of the matter is, we have a situation where we have post-Berlin Conference states that were, for the most part, created and demarcated by colonial powers.
That's right.
We liberated those territories, but we're still in this process of figuring out for ourselves, through a process of self-determination, how do we unite African people, those at
That's
home and
right.
those abroad?
That's right.
And so my organization, the Balanta Brasa History and Genealogy Society in America,
Mm-hmm.
is an organization whose members are from what we call the African diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, the African Union considers us a part of the African Union through what it calls its 6 regions. The
Can I,
African
before you
Union.
get to that point, forgive me for
Mhm.
interrupting. I don't get to. I'm going to get to the Sixth Region. Can I just ask you, just quickly in a minute, just describe the governance structure of the African Union? Give an overview of the governance structure, and how does the Economic and Social and Cultural Council fit into that governance structure, which we'll get
Sure.
onto. Yeah.
So the highest body or the highest organ of the AU is the General Assembly, which
Okay.
consists of the heads of states of each of these, what is it, 54, 55 nations. That's the highest. Now, um, their agenda is finalized by the Executive Council, which
Okay.
consists of the foreign ministers of these African states. Below that is the Permanent Representatives Committee. That is what handles the work and the power.
Okay.
So then you have what's called the African Union Commission, right, which handles the day to day work. And then you have various structures like the Pan African Parliament, you have the Peace and Security Council, and you have the Economic, Social, and Cultural Council, which is exactly what its name says. It
Yes.
concerns
Okay.
itself with the economic, social, and cultural concerns of
Mm-hmm.
African people, those at home and those abroad.
Right.
And that's,
Okay.
we call it ECOSOC. It's an
ECOSOC.
advisory
Yes.
organ
Yes. Yeah.
of the.
Go ahead. And it's an advisory body. Apparently, I understand it's based in Lusaka in Zambia. Is that right? I believe.
Correct.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay. So the Economic and Social and Cultural Council is specifically the council I think we're going to focus on for today's interview, because its role will be quite important. Okay. And I wanted you just to elaborate on its purpose, which you have. So I want the audience to understand its critical role in my follow-up questions. Okay, and I want to encourage those who are precocious and inquiring types to get on to your search engines and inquire. Okay, because we need to raise consciousness if we are to create change. Okay, so this is where we now come into this. So last
Mhm.
year, I understand that the Economic and Social and Cultural Council abandoned the Sixth Region's election process. Okay. Now, before explaining what happened in that election process, I just want you to just further make clear what is meant by the Sixth Region, and then go on to the abandoned election process of last year. So let's just talk about the Sixth Region first of all. Okay.
Okay. So again, in this transition from the
Mm-hmm.
Organization of African Unity, the OAU, to
Yes.
what we have now today, the African Union, during that transition, um, the architects and the leaders said that African people living outside the continent, what we
Mm-hmm.
refer to as the African diaspora,
Yes.
must be included as, as full members, as full participants in the African Union. This is not just
Wow.
about the African people living on the continent. We
Mm-hmm.
recognize our diaspora. And
Mm-hmm.
so they need to fully participate in the African Union.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2003, the African Union amended its constitution with the Article 3Q amendment that
Yes.
invited and encouraged the African diaspora as to fully participate in
Wow.
building the African Union. Now, it just so happens I was at that meeting when that constitutional amendment was approved. In fact, I was the only member of the African diaspora that was there. So in a way, I became, yes, this is why I'm doing this whole treatment today. So in a way, I'm sort of the grandfather of this Sixth Region initiative. And so because the African Union consists of 5 regions in Africa, North, South, East, West, and Central, they created the 6th region as the home of all of the 250 million plus members of the African diaspora. So whether you're living in Brussels or Lisbon or Washington or Detroit or Chicago or um, um, Honduras or Panama or Costa Rica, or even the Middle East or somewhere in Asia, anywhere outside the African continent, you're part of the African Union 6th region, which means full participation means we are supposed to have our representatives in all the African Union structures.
Wow.
Now, so in 2004, the first structure that was sort of mandated to include the diaspora was this Economic, Social, and Cultural Council. And when they approved their statutes on how the Economic, Social, and Cultural Council, what its purpose was, how it's going to run, all those things, Article 5, Section 3 said African diaspora create modalities for an election process and elect your 20 representatives to sit on the Economic, Social, and Cultural Council. It has 150 seats. 20 of them were reserved for the African diaspora.
Forgive me for interrupting. So just make it clear then. So the change in this resolution, can you just repeat the year in which it happened? It sounds as if there's a period of time that elapsed before the process started. Would I be right in making that intervention?
Yes, the Article 3Q amendment to include the diaspora in the African Union, that was 2003.
You did say that.
Yes.
Why has it taken so long? I don't want to hold you accountable for the performance. Okay, right. I don't want to hold you accountable. Just get a hint. In terms of thinking, it's clearly, for many of us, revolutionary. And finally, but 2003 is an awful long time. Is it our fault, our collective fault as being part of that diaspora, it not simply taking the mantle and running with it? Or was there some intermediary steps that have yet to be fulfilled in terms of resources, the secretariat maybe? Just give us a hint of what might have been happening. And you're not accruing blame, just some rationale. I know that's what the audience will look at. Well, it's 2003 is a long time. What's happening? Instead, you're not being held accountable, but just give us some rationale for it, a rationale.
Well, I would answer your question to say, no, it's certainly not. It is certainly not due to lack of effort and understanding on the part of the African diaspora.
Okay.
From the very beginning, and I can speak about this because I was a part of it, I signed the MOU with the African Union to create the Sixth Region Education Campaign, travel throughout the Western Hemisphere, and create that elections process. So from the very beginning, we have been making good faith, serious attempts to fulfill the mandate and elect our representatives. I can't speak for the African Union.
No.
Why, after 20 years of professing to want to include the diaspora formally in its structures, why it has taken 19, 20 years to do that.
Yeah.
Now, there are, again, we're talking about 55 different African states.
Yes.
All of whom have diasporas, meaning expatriates who left their country and live abroad. Plus, you have the historic diaspora, people like me
Indeed.
who
Yes.
were forcibly taken from our
Yes.
homeland and have been
Yes.
separated for a long time.
Yes.
So, just generally speaking, there are a lot of issues and things to be done to
Okay.
make that reconnection.
Okay.
But I don't believe that that's an excuse
Okay.
um, at
I won't
all.
pursue you
But
further. Don't worry, I won't pursue you further. Don't mean to embarrass anyone within the African Union, but it is a question that's necessary to be asked because ordinary men and women out there are going to ask that question. Okay, 2003 is actually more than 20 years, but it is well.
if
It
I
is
could
well.
just say it straight,
Mhm.
if I could just say it straight,
Of course, of course.
lack of will,
Okay. What?
lack of
Okay.
political will.
All right. Okay. And I've found, I've got some connection with politics myself. It takes the people to energize politicians at times to action. Okay, so I'm not going to just put it on them. I say it's for us, okay, because we want to get onto the unity amongst Pan-Africanists worldwide in a moment. Subsequent to the abandoned election process, and I just wanted to spend a minute or two on why
Yeah.
that election process was abandoned, first of all.
So yes, in the fall of 2024,
Hmm.
right, the African Union Economic, Social, and Cultural Council announced the elections for its fourth General Assembly. And in that announcement, it referred only to the 5 regions in Africa.
Oh,
There was no reference to process, procedure, inclusion of the sixth region in that elections process. Those of us that have been working in this AU sixth region space were offended and insulted by that. And so our response was to create a parallel process in alignment with the Article 5, Section 3 um, part of the AU ECOSOC statutes, to follow their own statutes
yes,
and create a parallel process to elect our 20 representatives
yes.
because this is the year that the African Union has themed the year of justice for
Hmm.
Africans and people of African descent through reparations.
Right.
So, all throughout this year, the African Union is organizing events to seriously consider the issue of reparations, even negotiate or initiate negotiations, right? So that is the focus of this year. And our perspective is that how can you have genuine conversations about reparations and the descendants of the 12 million people that were trafficked and
Yeah,
enslaved
that's
are
right.
not embedded in the structures
Absolutely.
that are governing this process in these discussions. So we wanted to elect our own representatives and say, look, here we are. We are ready to engage the AU this year during the themed year for reparations. Um, and on the African Union side, they kept saying, well, we still don't have a diaspora framework for to legally get you embedded in our structures.
Hmm.
That has changed as a result of this last AU meeting that was held in February. They have finally approved a legal structure, and so now there's a clear way forward in terms of the diaspora's participation in the Economic, Social, and Cultural Council. But we took this action before that happened to be able to say, look, we are capable of organizing ourselves, selecting
Hmm.
representatives, right, and engaging in these conversations in an
Yes,
intelligent, organized
yes,
way with a united front that represents all of us throughout the sixth region.
yes. Right. Well said. Well said. So it goes back to what I said originally. It takes the people to uh, engage those politicians in ways that they have to take action. Right? So it is well. This is well. But the revised process that they've put forward, again, I'm not asking for the finer details. I just want you just to indicate the revised. Is it any different from what you devised? And if there is difference, what are the fundamental differences between the process you devised and what they've now put in place for us, as it were?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So originally, when we first started this work in 2000, right after 2004, right,
Mm-hmm.
it signed an MOU. Originally, when we had started this work, our vision was to travel throughout the diaspora with an education campaign. We would go to the 100 cities with the largest African diaspora population, Black people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We would
Mm-hmm.
go to these cities, explain to them the invitation to be a part of the African Union, right? Give them all the information, create a
Mm-hmm.
council of elders that would sort of supervise the elections.
Mm-hmm.
And in each of these cities, in each of these regions, um, we would have open nominations. The candidates would come, present themselves,
Mm-hmm.
explain why they feel they would be a good representative, right? And then there would be popular elections
Okay.
for each region. So I should say that the sixth region is divided into 9 subregions.
Okay.
So
Right. So yes.
you have the subregion of um, the Caribbean, you have the subregion United States, you
Mm-hmm.
have the subregion Canada, you have the subregion Central America, you have the subregion South America, you have the subregion Brazil. There's so many Afro descendants in Brazil that it's a subregion all unto itself, apart from South America. And a part of that is
Mm-hmm.
also because of the language. They speak Portuguese. The rest of South
Yes.
America is speaking,
Spanish.
you
Yes.
know, Spanish mostly.
Mhm.
Then you have the subregion Europe. You have the
Mhm.
subregion Asia Oceania, and you
Yes.
have the subregion Middle East.
Yes.
So each of those subregions were allocated a certain number of seats or representatives based primarily on population size, um, and also their level of sort of Pan African involvement. So, for example, in the United States, there would be 4 representatives. And so, Black people in the United States, the various civil society organizations that became part of these town hall meetings would eventually, right, have an election to choose their 4 representatives. The
Mhm.
Caribbean region would go through the same process, choose their 3 representatives. Brazil would go. So it was supposed to be an open public process,
Right.
right, to do that. Now, AU ECOSOC has now announced that, contrary to the Article 5, Section 3 mandate for the diaspora to organize themselves, they have now stepped in and said, we are creating the process. We don't have all the details of that yet, but what we do
Mm.
know is um, that civil society organizations that meet eligibility criteria, some of which is you have to at least 3 years old, uh, more 51% of the board of directors have to be people of African descent.
Mhm.
There's criteria about where you receive your funding, all of these
Okay.
things. All right.
Right. Right.
Um, these civil society organizations, right, nominate someone to represent them. They submit these applications to the elections committee in AU ECOSOC. They will evaluate whether they meet the eligibility criteria or not. And if they do, then they will be included in an electoral college.
If I may,
And
just
this,
before you continue, forgive me for interrupting, just so I'm clear, I'm trying to determine what was different from the process you set up from the process that is set up now by the ECOSAC. Is there a fundamental difference, and what are those
yes,
fundamental differences between the
the
process? Let's
fundamental
focus on
difference.
that, if I may.
The fundamental difference is, according to what we were told in the March 15th town hall meeting hosted by ECOSOC,
Yeah.
that um, only the electoral college will vote for who the 20 representatives.
Oh,
Okay?
sorry, say that again. Oh, say that again. The Electoral College being the representatives from the various sub-regions. They're the only ones that can vote. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And remember, it's the AU ECOSOC committee themselves which are
Oh.
determining, right, which one of these organizations is eligible and or not based on these applications that get submitted. So the fundamental difference is
Mhm.
AU ECOSOC is selecting who gets to vote, whereas our original process is anyone in the diaspora can vote.
That's pretty fundamental, if I may. That's pretty fundamental. You should have said that up front, if I may say so. That's pretty fundamental. Uh, if I may, it's just to understand, and again, I'm trying not to embarrass anyone, either you or others in the AU or ECOSAC, if I can avoid that. But it has to be asked, and it will be asked by ordinary men and women, ordinary Africans in the diaspora. What is the legal standing to allow them to do so if the Sixth Region are supposed to organise themselves? What gives this organisation the right to determine who is who that will sit and represent the Sixth Region, in this case in ECOSAC, being the first of these agencies? What gives them the legal right? Where is it written that gives them that legal right? I just want to make sure I've understood it first of all, then I can move forward. So that is
Well,
there a
let's
legal
re-
right, or are you questioning it yourself?
well, let's remember. This is why I keep emphasizing the AU is an intergovernmental association. It's
Okay.
not a government. Okay, it's a private club. It
Yeah.
makes its own rules and regulations. It has a constitution, bylaws, things like that. It's a private club. So they can determine how they want to function and operate. Then they do that through, for example, in this case, the Economic, Social, and Cultural Council's um, statutes. Apparently, their legal division that took 20 years to figure out how to include the sixth region
Yeah.
has now decided that the way going forward will be this process. Do they have the right to do that? Absolutely. They created those statutes. They can change them. They can interpret them any way they want. Is it in the spirit of that original Article 3Q amendment and the original Article 5, Section 3 mandate for us to organize ourselves and create our own elections process? And I don't believe that it's in that same spirit. I
Okay. Okay.
was
No, that's fine. That's
disappointed.
fine. I said I don't want to go too deeply into this. I'd like to invite a representative from ECOSAC here. We can have that honest one-to-one dialogue, but I'll get to that in a moment. But I just needed to be clear this fundamental difference between the process you were describing and what is now being imposed upon us, which is, as you know, to have survived these hundreds of years, being matters imposed upon us. You and I are not that keen on such matters, but I won't progress that for the moment. I want to really focus on the question, and he's not on the list of questions I'm going to ask you, but it seems pertinent now. Caribbean states, in other words, states outside of the United States of America. Okay, I'm not sure why the digital hang went up there, but anyway, uh, uh, such as the Caribbean states, are they given special status in the African Union? Do they have a vote? With question marks at this stage.
So again, the African Union is an intergovernmental association that consists of the 54, 55 heads of states of African nations.
Okay.
So, in that respect, the nations of the Caribbean are not included in the General Assembly. Okay? Now, being independent nations, many of them primarily consisting of people of African descent, the African Union does recognize them as states in the Sixth Region. Now, they have yet to figure out how to do the intergovernmental inclusion of these Caribbean states, like Haiti, like Jamaica.
Yes.
Very recently, Haiti tried to apply for membership in the African Union, and they were rejected.
Indeed.
Jamaica in the 1960s, same way, right?
Yes.
The African Union, on the one hand, has this problem where they are not recognizing the predominantly African states in the Sixth Region and including them as member states. This is something that is part of Agenda 2063. At some point in the future, that has to be done.
Yes.
So there are two kinds of diaspora inclusion. There's the non-governmental engagement, and then there's the intergovernmental engagement. And so the African Union is now in a partnership with CARICOM.
Okay. Yes.
But CARICOM members are not full members of the African Union. Okay, so right now they're engaging through this partnership framework. So hopefully that kind of clarifies it.
Thank you, and that's a help. And again, I would invite members of CARICOM to address this particular podcast. It needs to happen. Okay. Obviously.
And on that point, let me just do this very quickly. Remember, the original objective of the AU predecessor was the liberation of the colonial territories.
That's right.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, there are still 17 black colonies that exist in the world today. For example, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Bonaire, Saint Martin, right? These are black colonies that have yet to be liberated. So one of, I'd say, critiques of the African Union is that there still is African people under colonialism that need to be liberated. And the African Union needs to take the same position that it took in terms of the people in Southwest Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe. You know, when you had the ANC and ZANU-PF and PAIGC, right? The same position that the African Union took to liberate those people, right? They need to do the same for the liberation movements that still exist, including, for example, I happen to serve as Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa. This is the independence movement of the internal domestic black colony within the United States that the international community hasn't recognized as an internal domestic colony of the United States. The African Union, I suggest, should be taking a position to recognize our situation and the situation of Bonaire, Saint Martin, both the British and U.S. Virgin Islands and others. So these are some of the complex geopolitical issues that revolve around Sixth Region engagement with the African Union.
Thank you. And again, maybe on another occasion we can pursue and better understand those current colonies. Uh, but what you're indicating, of course, is a determination to move forward. Okay.
Mhm.
Obviously, the negotiation with ECOSAC, with the outcome is this new election process. They had to do something because you took the initiative, which is usually the way these things work. Okay. But I note, of course, and the tagline for this particular podcast is that why have the Balanta Society of America, another Pan-African organization, which I'll invite you to list if you wish, have called upon the Pan-African Treaty of the Sixth Region of the African Diaspora. Why have you initiated that process? Why do it? And what is the outcome you're seeking? Go ahead.
So, the reason why we are putting forward the Pan African Treaty for the Sixth Region African Diaspora is that when we launched this parallel election process to elect our own African diaspora representatives,
Yes, yes.
that was actually encouraged by the African Commission on Human and People's Rights when we met with them in October of last year. They said, go forward, have your elections,
Okay.
right? Under the ECOSOC statutes, have your elections. Because this was a catalyst for organizing and centralizing the African diaspora.
Absolutely.
When we went through that process, it exposed the fact that organizing and centralizing and coming into a united front is not easy. And in the process, we suffered the disunity and dysfunction
Indeed.
that has plagued us ever since we were taken from our homelands and enslaved in the West. So there are divisions. There are different organizations. They have different interests. You know, we have one great interest, but we have different means, tactics, different interests, whether they be regional, whether they be economic, whatever they are. So
Understood.
there are
Yes.
all these internal divisions in the sixth region. And this election process was a litmus test to
Yes.
see, could we overcome our differences in order to unite on the common objective, which simply was, is it better for us to have 20 representatives take their seats or not?
Yes.
The whatever arguments we have along the way about the process, who those represent, all of that, let's just go through a process and get 20 representatives, and we can work out finer details after that. And the process was going smooth. Many organizations that were competing with each other, maybe even quarreling with each other, were coming into the process.
That's right.
And then it unraveled for very specific reasons. It unraveled, and as a result, we realized that if we didn't articulate some principles of unification and bind us through some kind of treaty that would
Yes.
facilitate and create a united front when it comes to the unification of the African diaspora and being able to speak with one voice. The failure of the elections process and then the resulting really nasty sabotage and disunity that was displayed by some unscrupulous elements, right, that were involved, we realized no, we needed to get a treaty that could kind of govern all of the people claiming to represent the sixth region.
Wow. And if I may, and we started a little late, so I'm going to, with your permission, let's go on a little longer for our interview because you're at this really important aspect of our dialogue. If I may, the term treaty typically is between nations. Why refer to it as being a treaty? So the question I was challenged by, I'm sure you were as well. Get this clarified why the term treaty is appropriate on this occasion, first of all.
So actually, that would be a brilliant question for the principal drafter of the treaty,
Okay,
which was
right. Yes,
Her Excellency Vice President uh, Keturah Emoaka
yes,
of the
yes.
State of the African Diaspora.
Okay, all
Now,
right.
SOAD is engaging the AU on the intergovernmental level because SOAD
Okay.
is um, a a new kind of state. Okay, a new
Mm,
kind of state exists because of the technology. It's not just any one geographical location. It's multi-territorial.
mm-hmm.
So I think maybe the use of the word treaty, right, was influenced by the fact that one of the drafters
Okay,
would engage that way. But if we just look at if we bring it down to where the goats can get it, the common sense understanding of the average person,
okay,
a
yes,
treaty is just an agreement
absolutely.
between different independent entities.
Hmm. Okay,
So I think the
understood.
word is
Okay, okay, understood. Not to worry, it's fine. I just need to ask the question because it's out there, and I need to just sort of understand the logic. Maybe we can.
and let me look very
Okay,
quickly,
yeah,
quite commonly, we hear the word treaty in reference to a peace treaty,
yes,
an
yes,
agreement to keep the peace.
yes.
So, since this was born out of a very contentious moment where we were supposed to be uniting, but what happened was it exposed in a very, sad and unfortunate way
Hmm.
how the divisions within the various African diaspora and their organizations, how that can lead to, behavior, really atrocious behavior that sabotages our own interests.
Yes.
So we needed a peace treaty, and we called it a
Okay.
Pan African Treaty for the Sixth
Right.
Region African Diaspora.
Right. To give it legal standing, I know that the treaty shall enter into force upon ratification by a minimum of 2,000 recognized African diasporan organization, civil societies, professional bodies, and of course individuals globally. Now, what is the significance of the 2,000 milestone? Why is it not 10,000? After all, we've got 250 million, for example. Why is it 2,000 that it will then come into ratification?
So again,
Another question for
I
her,
can,
is it?
I can,
Okay, all
I
right.
can, no, I can
Okay,
give a kind of analysis and justification, which
all
goes
right.
something like this. First of all, we're talking about 250 million people,
Yes,
right, scattered over 9 subregions.
yes,
Right? So, as compared to the other 5 regions in Africa, the sixth region is unique geographically and in terms of its population. We have people that are of the widest, right, connections. So, in some ways, not even connected at all, but
mm,
still connected.
mm,
We have
yes,
languages. We have
yes,
different. Where we reside in places with different political and social situations. So we're talking about this mosaic, this tapestry, right? That is so diverse.
mhm,
All right. Now, if we were to wait on consensus
yes,
from all the relevant stakeholders, that may take longer than the AU's 2063 agenda. So
yes, yes.
it can't be a number that is so large and so broadly representative that it's impracticable.
Okay.
By
All
the
right.
same time, it cannot be so small that it's not truly representative of the entire sixth region and its 9 subregions. Okay? So, in the past, when we have had gatherings or meetings on this specific agenda of uniting the diaspora,
Yes.
for example, you had the Conference of Intellectuals in Dakar in 2004.
Right.
That had 800 to 1,200 delegates.
Right.
Okay. I think the largest Pan African Congress that was held had no more than that same number, 1,200 delegates or something like that.
Okay.
So we wanted a number that we could truly defend as truly representative of the diaspora.
Okay.
And if we had more signatories, right, than the number of delegates at any other previous gathering, then you had to recognize that as valid and legitimate. Otherwise, you invalidate every other meeting conference that ever took place on this that had fewer delegates or
That's fine.
signatories.
We just need a response to that question. And to help the audience here who've not yet seen the document, and just want to remind the audience that this interview, this entire podcast will be re-edited, and where we're referring to documents, the document would appear on the screen, just for your ease of understanding. But as we're not going to project the document on the screen on this occasion, it will be on the screen on the finalized edited version. But I want to read, if I may, is the objective of the treaty. If you don't mind, if I read it, and if I read it incorrectly, I'm sure you'll correct me. Just for the purpose of understanding and clarity for those who are listening, and the majority will be listening. So here it is, the Article 2, the objectives of the treaty. And to be clear, this is the treaty of the Pan-African Treaty of the Sixth Region of the African Diaspora. I just want to emphasize that so avoid any misunderstanding. And I will put a link to the treaty in the comments section of this podcast. Okay, we'll link to it. But there we go. Article 2, the objectives. I know you've got it there, Sabrina. Let me read it out for the benefit of this dialogue. Section 1. The signatories parties recognize and affirm the shared vision of fostering unity, cooperation, and collective progress amongst all organizations and individuals representing the African diaspora. 2. To provide the capacity for the African diaspora to speak with one voice in world affairs. 3. To uphold and maintain collective unity of purpose and collective action as the sixth region of the African Union. 4. Support to ensure the full integration of the African diaspora in the sixth region of the African Union, AU. 5. Promote African-centric education, history, and cultural preservation in both Africa and the diaspora. 6. Promote and support programs geared toward decolonization of education systems. 7. African language revival to support learning and usage of African languages in diaspora communities. Wow, fantastic, huh? 8. To support an established framework ensuring the full, fair, and transparent participation of the African diaspora in ECOSAC elections every 4 years. And 9, uphold the principles of democracy, representation, and legitimacy in African Union affairs. I can't argue with that. And organizations that I'm directly linked with, I'm sure will have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. Okay. Is that fair?
Yes, and as you were reading that, a few things came to mind,
Okay.
which was one, for all these 19, 20 years of the African Union professing to include the diaspora in its sixth region, we have felt marginalized We have felt excluded, not fully respected, in spite of all of these laudable pronouncements to include us. We have felt marginalized. And so part of this, the motivation behind this treaty was for us in the diaspora to build ourselves into a united front so that we would no longer be marginalized within the African Union.
Absolutely.
We say, look, we now represent the 250 million people in the diaspora, and you have to take that seriously.
Yes.
The other thing that came to mind was that, again, for those 19 or 20 years, we have always had well-meaning groups stand up and say, we represent the Sixth Region. The problem with that is that we had several groups do this.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And all using similar names. African Union this, AU Sixth Region that, High Council this, And so what happened was all these different groups stood up and said, we represent the Sixth Region. We are the governing body of the Sixth Region. But those groups usually consisted of just a handful of intellectuals. They were not supported by the masses of our people on the ground. People don't even know the organization exists. And if you ask those organizations to actually do any real resource mobilization, because they have no constituencies, delegates, members, not so easy for them to do, to mobilize support. Like if you say, okay, we need 5,000 people to turn up on Saturday at this place, at this park, for whatever, or that capacity wasn't necessarily there. So from the perspective of the AU, with all these different groups claiming to represent the Sixth Region with these names, it created a problem for the AU because who do they really turn to?
That's right.
Who can they trust to actually not claim to represent the Sixth Region, but actually and can align and help the AU with various mobilizations? So the intention here is to respect all of those organizations, all of the work that they have put in.
Yes.
And say, all right, let's everyone doing this work, let's come together and under this treaty, in this united front, pull together all of our think tank, our members, our resources, use this as a way to promote the AU Sixth Region and get individuals and more people into this network to make it a true representation. Now, this might be a challenge because if these groups feel proprietary over the Sixth Region, right, then they're going to feel like they're losing their position or whatever. And I'm here to say, no, this is how you gain greater status and leverage within the AU. They will respect us more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Well said. I say it, and you may have heard in my early deliberations, in unity is strength. Yeah. We need to translate these great words into action. Yeah. In unity is strength. Now, we're almost to a close, but you have embarked on what is a grandiose but incredibly important exercise. Please summarize for us, the diaspora who are hungry for your success, the timeline when you want the Pan-African Treaty of the Sixth Region, the African Diaspora, this process to be recognized and completed. What's your timeline?
So the treaty is going to be made available for signature, right, by next week. Okay.
Good.
I worked on it this morning. We'll be able to.
Is there a date? Can you give us a date, please? Give us a date, because we like a date here.
By the end of April, right? It will be out there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so the way this works is we will put out information about the treaty and what it is. When I say we, the various organizations that have been a part of putting this together. It's not one
Mm-hmm.
organization. It's not
Mm-hmm.
Sipiwe. I didn't even write the treaty. Okay, so it's
Okay.
not Sipiwe's thing. Let's make that clear. It's a collaborative process by lots of key stakeholders. It will
Can I
start.
ask you just pause there? Forgive me, because it's a really, really, really important point. Again, the feedback I'm getting is that these are disconnected individuals. I responded in kind that this is a group of leading Pan-African organization who've taken the bull by the horn and have understood that in order to impress upon what is a large international intergovernmental organization, in unity is strength, in numbers is strength. Okay, we need a coherent voice, and that coherent voice will be expressed through this treaty. The treaty articles are very clear, and they are all encompassing, encompasses all the diversity that makes up the Pan-African communities worldwide. And thus far, I've not yet received the pushback. There's been no pushback, but there you are. Okay, so I just want to emphasize this is a collective effort. It's not an individual. It's a collective effort. Sorry, I interrupted, but this describes the timeline and the process. Continue, please.
So that the treaty will start circulating. We'll get it out next week, and so that gives us basically by the end of April, this thing is launched. Okay, and it's auspicious because we have several things that are happening in May. In the beginning of May, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, in partnership with AU ECOSOC, is hosting a roundtable as part of the theme of the year, reparations. And they have asked us, the diaspora, to send representatives and put our reparations proposals on the table.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have groups that are writing reports based on, for example, those people that have returned to the continent. What is their condition in these countries? Do they have citizenship? What's working? What's not working? What do we need? So citizenship is high on the priority. There are proposals for providing for free DNA testing for any Afro-descendant anywhere in the world, right, who wants to return from ethnocide. There are proposals on the table for multilateral, multinational decade of return programs. For example, here in Guinea-Bissau, we have a decade of return program where people who have taken a DNA test and are of Guinean origin, there's a proposal that the government of Guinea-Bissau, the Vatican, the government of Portugal, the government of Spain, the government of the United States, and the government of Colombia, where there are 470 people with the last name Balanta, right?
Ooh, okay.
Right, to have projects where these multinational, as part of reparations, since they are responsible for the trafficking, the separating from the continent, they should be responsible for financing their return.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just a return for 1 week or 2 weeks to be reintroduced to your country. So there are all of these concrete proposals that we're saying by the end of this year, we should have some tangible something, both from the African side. We're saying, okay, the reparations that we need comprehensive citizenship. We need all these African nations to recognize our right of return.
Absolutely.
How, as an African nation, can you go out to the guilty colonial European nations and say you have a moral and a legal responsibility, right, to provide reparations, and they turn around and say, but you haven't even provided reparations to your own people. You're supposed to give citizenship to those people that lost it, and you haven't done that, right? So the timeline is saying we want, let me bring it back to your point.
Thank you.
We want to reach that number of 2,000 so that the treaty is ratified and goes into effect. The treaty calls for a committee to be formed that would be formed by all of the people who sign and ratify the treaty, that would then have the constituted delegated responsibility for how is the United Front going to engage in these international arenas and have qualified representation to put our proposals on the table and negotiate them. We want to have that coming out of this May period. So there's going to be this roundtable at the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. Then there's going to be a symposium on May 25th at a university in the Vatican, where we will be meeting the Vatican scholars and saying, look, we're done with reminding you of the history. You know that. They're in your archives. Here are the proposals, pilot projects that the Vatican, and in partnership with all of your Occidental war contract holders, France, Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, the British colonies, all of your contract holders, right? Here are pilot programs that are not focused specifically on just cutting a check and giving individuals money. No, they're focused on real repair work.
That's right.
Now, if the diaspora has a ratified treaty, a united front where we're no longer competing with each other,
that's right.
Right? We're working together to present these demands. This is the start of the start of the second decade of International Decade of People of African Descent. It's the beginning of this decade of return sponsored by the African Union. It's a turning point in the reparations movement.
Brilliant. We're almost at the close now. And I'm getting messages, of course. There are many who want to reach out to you, and that's typical, as you know. Tell me, how best, if those who want to reach out to you, how best you want to do it? Is there a website or email address? Or take note of it now, and it'll be on the screen, folks. But it's re-edited version of this podcast will be on the screen. But can you give us either website or email address that we appropriate for you?
So, the email address is Pan-African Treaty African Diaspora minus the last A, because we ran out of room. So it's Pan-African Treaty African Diaspora at gmail.com. It is a dedicated account that doesn't belong to any one organization or group. It's just a dedicated communications channel for people interested in the treaty. Pan-African Treaty African Diaspora, DIASPOR, at gmail.com.
Okay, got that there.
And
I'll be on the screen. Go ahead.
Wants to get the actual copy of the treaty to be signed, right, through an e-signature, Adobe e-sign. So it'll be legal. It will be, timestamped and IP address authenticated, all of that.
Yes.
You have to request the official treaty copy.
Perfect.
Beyond that, the different groups that have been involved will be putting out information in their social media channels. We don't, there's no dedicated web page, because again, this is not an organization or an institution, right, that currently exists. This is a coalition, right, of civil society organizations, community-based organizations, individual stakeholders. It's a coalition that doesn't belong to any one particular, right? It's the diaspora itself.
Absolutely.
So from at various times, people like myself and others will be writing articles, doing shows just like this to promote it, sending that out to the network so that people get the information. But communicate, just use that email address and whatever information you need, and that's how you get the official copy of the treaty and you can ratify it.
Thank you very much. And go ahead. I've got that, and the details will be in the comment section on the channel, the Motivator channel. So this has been, I would consider this, if you don't mind me saying this, part one of a series of discussions, because we're creating the movement. Yeah, this is Pan-Africanism par excellence at the moment. This is what we're intending to do. Unity amongst ourselves. Reparations begins with self-repair. This is what we're engaged in right now. And I want to encourage it. And I know that there will be some criticism, which is all part of the course, but we're strong people, determined, focused. I've read the articles. It's very clear its intent. It is unarguably Pan-African is in its intention, to which very few, if any, Pan-African organization would wish to contradict publicly. They need to get around the table, get into the process, because in unity is strength. I want to thank you, because you have a fascinating profile. There's so much I need to discuss with you. You can see my connection with Rastafari, and I see your work in that regard. It is immensely grateful. I'm immensely grateful for your work. But I want to recognize you. Often, great people like yourself, we don't have the opportunity to say very simply to you, and it's a very simple word, and it's one that doesn't often come kindly to others, and we don't do it enough in our community. Simply to say thank you. Simply thank you, and I'm going to applaud you. I'm going to applaud you with a certain vigor and recognizing you. I want to recognize you. I want to be unabashed in my admiration for your work. I want to be, have no shame in saying thank you. But there are many who've said, who say and do a lot of, but we don't really do a great deal. It does more harm than good. So here it is. There's my lights going up now. There you are. Let's do some technical kind of lights. Just do this. There you are. More of this for you. I want to recognize you, really. This is what's going inside my head right now. There you are. The ticker tape. This is it. I want to put you on the map and understand that those who are working with you, those organizations, we want to express on behalf of the African diaspora, more than 250 million of us are out there. Thank you. Thank you. And long may your path be long and profitable, and may the ancestors look over you always. And I say unto you, as you expect, praise Jah and Rastafari. Bless.
Rastafari. Thank you.
Good day to you. Until the next time, I remain the motivator. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, wasn't that something, eh? Wasn't that something? Wasn't that something? And that simply goes to show the progress is underway here across the globe. Get involved in the process. If you're a person of African descent, get involved in this process, okay? You are not alone. You are not alone. I say again, you are not alone. There are many like-minded, conscious people out there, yeah, who are not necessarily Africans, but understand the importance of African unity to global world affairs. This is for you, children, and for you, our grandchildren and children's children. This is for you. So those of my age group, let's get involved. Let's get involved. We do this for the children, not for ourselves, not for ourselves and personal financial or personal aggrandizement. We do this for the children. It is the children who must benefit from our legacy. It is critical that if you are a conscious human being, particularly of African descent, that you rally around and support the Treaty for Unity. Support the treaty to enact unity, enshrine unity amongst the African diaspora, which is right across the Caribbean, the Americas, here in Europe, and indeed in Asia, Australasia. Okay? Be unashamed, but be proud of who you are. Yeah? Be proud of who you are. Don't let any other negative propaganda suggest otherwise to you. Okay? Be proud of who you are. Behind me, you can see the city of Lagos. Yeah, deliberately. Want to be centered there in Africa. Okay? Absolutely. See, children, there's many buildings there, many job opportunities there. You can create job opportunities there in Africa and in Burkina Faso, yeah, Rwanda, yeah, Addis Ababa, yeah. We can create those buildings for ourselves. The future is what we make of it. The future is what we make of it. And you're not alone. You saw the exercise class earlier on. These are Africans from right across the place, and other peoples come right across the place who've decided that their health is indeed their highest wealth. And it's easier to maintain good health and well-being if we do it together, because in unity is strength. So thank you, each one of you, for supporting this podcast. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, yeah, please subscribe. It just simply helps us out and ensure that the YouTube algorithm will recommend this channel to other people. I understand there are hundreds of millions of people, possibly more than billions of people on YouTube. Oh, I know a good proportion of this would find this information useful. So if you subscribe, or at least leave a comment or give us a thumbs up, would be very nice as well. Give us a thumbs up, at the very least a thumbs up, okay? And the machine will then recommend this particular podcast to hundreds of millions of people out there. Please give us support. Okay, I think that is a wrap. I think that's a wrap. But I hope you found this experience rewarding. Give us feedback. We welcome your feedback, and I see some feedback in the commentary, and thank you for those comments. Thank you for that. Okay. But what I would really appreciate, I see the thumbs up, I really appreciate it. And if you haven't recommended this channel to your family, to your friends, to your network, please recommend it to them. Encourage them. It's free to subscribe, okay? And what it does, it enables us to be able to continue this content sincerely and without interference with others. Okay, so there you are. I'm going to close now. So, until the next strong, I remain the motivator. The Motivator Show. The Motivator Show. Pan-African Treaty of the Sixth Region African Diaspora. Pan-Africanists include Marcus Mosiah Garvey Jr. was Jamaican political activist and Jamaica's first national hero. He was the founder and first President General of the Universal Negro Recruitment Association, which boasts more than 4 million members. Garvey's words inspires today's generation. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. A people without the knowledge of their past history, origins and culture is like a tree without roots. Take advantage of every opportunity. Where there is none, make it for yourselves. Kwame Osifo Nkrumah, the first African-born Prime Minister of Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah was a prominent Pan-African organizer whose radical vision and bold leadership helped lead Ghana to independence in 19 1957, and Nkrumah served as an inspiration to Martin Luther King, who often looked to Nkrumah's leadership as an example of non-violent activism. Nkrumah said, "Thought without practice is empty, and action without thought is blind." His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia in Rastafari is regarded as a divine figure, often seen as the second coming of Jesus or God incarnate. He is central to the movement belief and is seen as a key figure in their theology, particularly the ideas of Black God and Black Messiah. His Imperial Majesty said this: "Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who should know better, the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most, that made it possible for evil to triumph." Praise God, Rastafari. And to the next song, I remain the motivator.